Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. I'd love to know. And if you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, let's jump in. The moons above Outpost Delta 4 cast a dull light over the wreckage field. Scraps of broken hulls, burned out engines, and drifting bodies from ships that had dared to raid nearby trade lanes. This corner of space had always belonged to pirates. They called it the Deadline, a region so feared and lawless that no fleet, no empire, no one from civilized space dared to patrol it. But today, that changed. A ship appeared, silent, unmarked, and moving like it belonged there. It wasn't flashy. No glowing shields or blaring sirens. Just one long, dark figure sliding between the stars, casting a shadow over the ruins like a ghost ship. Pirate scouts picked it up on long-range scans, but the readings made no sense. No known signature, no registry, no origin. One of the spotters leaned in closer, blinking at the data. That's a human warship, he muttered, almost afraid to say it. The command deck of the pirate flagship erupted into noise. Warnings blared. Weapons powered up. Panic surged through the channels like a virus. Humans don't come out here, the pirate captain snapped, his cybernetic eye twitching. They've got no business in this sector. But the ship didn't care about business. It didn't send a message. It didn't explain. It just came and floated there, watching, waiting. On board, deep in the command chamber, the human officer sipped calmly from a dented old mug, the logo on its side long worn away by years of use. His eyes stayed on the display, watching the pirate fleet panic in real time. A smile tugged at his mouth. Not cruel, just quiet. Like someone remembering why they were feared in the first place. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. Because in less than 60 seconds, without firing a single shot, everything was about to change. The pirate fleet didn't wait for introductions. They were old ships, patched together from scrap and violence. Dozens of stolen vessels flying under one flag, cobbled into a force that had ruled this region for years. To them, fear was a currency. Firepower was law. But now, they were looking at something they didn't understand. A ship with no name, no color, no fleet ID. It hovered above the asteroid belt like it had always been there, as if space itself had shaped around it. "Send a warning shot," the pirate captain barked, his voice hard and uncertain. "Let 'em know who owns this place." One of his lieutenants hesitated. "Sir, the ship hasn't locked weapons. It hasn't raised shields. It's not even moving." The captain slammed a fist against the railing. "That's not a ship," he growled. "That's bait." But it wasn't bait. Not really. The pirate destroyer Bloodhowl broke formation, arching toward the human vessel. Its weapons spun up, twin plasma cannons glowing red, ready to melt through armor. The moment the cannons fired, twin bolts of energy shot across the black. Blinding, fast, vicious. They never landed. In the space between heartbeats, the human warship pulsed, a soft flicker, a single ripple across its matte black hull like a stone dropped in still water. Then, the blood howl was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. No explosion. No wreckage. No trace. Just gone. The pirate fleet froze. Silence hit harder than any weapon. On every bridge, screens blinked uncertainly. Systems recalibrated. Scans ran in loops trying to find what just happened. They didn't fire back. Someone whispered on an open channel. They didn't even react. captain's breathing slowed, not from calm, but from dread. "What is that thing?" he muttered, to no one in particular. But in the void of space, the question echoed louder than a scream. Back aboard the human ship, the commander watched it unfold without moving. His name wasn't known to the pirates, not yet, but across Earth's dark history, it carried weight. Commander Jace Weller, a name carved into silence. A soldier who didn't speak in threats or warnings, just results. He studied the pirate fleet from his seat, letting the quiet press against the walls of the bridge like water around a submerged beast. "Confirmation on the target's disappearance?" he asked quietly. The voice of his operations officer, Mara Keene, came through crisp and calm. "Confirmed. No energy discharge, no projectile trail, just nothing, like they blinked out of the universe." "Not blinked," Jace replied. "Turned off." He sipped from his mug again, the faintest smirk in his eyes. Pirates had ruled this region for over a decade. They preyed on the weak, disabled trade ships, kidnapped civilians, sold them to slavers and warlords for fuel, weapons, territory. Every time a fleet tried to reclaim the space, they were met with ambushes, traps, brutal losses. But they'd never fought a human warship. Not one like this. The stakes weren't about this battle. They weren't about honor or territory. This wasn't a skirmish. It was a warning. If humanity had truly returned to the outer sectors, it meant something had changed. Jace stood slowly, setting his mug down with a soft click on the console. "They're still trying to decide if we're bluffing," he said. "I'd like to make that decision easier for them." Mara raised an eyebrow. "Targeting orders?" "No," he said. "Not yet. I want to give them time to remember." He turned toward the main screen. The pirate fleet was still there, still breathing, still scared. "They've forgotten what it means to provoke us," he muttered. "But that's the thing about forgetting, Mara. It means we get to remind them." Across the pirate armada, panic was blooming like a virus. The captains were shouting now, arguing over comms, blaming each other. Some wanted to retreat, others demanded answers. One bold frigate even tried to hail the human ship. The message was shaky, half static, but it came through. "Unidentified warship. State your purpose in deadline territory. This space is claimed. Stand down or be fired upon." Jace didn't even flinch. He leaned toward the comms. "No response," he ordered. "Let them speak. Let them scream. But we do not speak first." That was the human way. Let the enemy write their own ending. Mara tapped into the tactical display, watching the pirates grow restless. "If they fire again—" "Then we make an example," Jace said. Inside the pirate fleet, sensors kept glitching. Ghosts appeared and vanished from their scans, faint outlines of shapes too fast to track, whispers of engines, silent pings from impossible locations. Something was moving behind them, around them. Then the comms officer on the pirate command ship stood frozen. "Captain," he said, voice shaking. "We've got multiple contacts, closing in." "How many?" He turned pale. "Too many." From behind the pirate fleet, shadows flickered into view. Sleek, silent, invisible until now. Human stealth vessels, 7 in total, surrounding the fleet like wolves in a slow hunt. "They're not alone," the pirate captain whispered. No one dared move. Because now, the pirates understood. The warship wasn't here to invade. It wasn't here to negotiate. It was here to remind them why humans were once feared across every known system. This wasn't about the blood howl. It wasn't about piracy. It wasn't even about justice. It was about memory. The last time a human siege vessel entered lawless space uninvited, 3 entire pirate clans disappeared in a single night. No demands, no survivors, no explanations, only silence. Jace took a breath and tapped a small key on his console. Below the bridge, the ship's core began to hum. Not loud, not violent, just steady, like a heartbeat. The air changed. Lights dimmed slightly as the power shifted to battle configuration. Across the bridge, crew members tightened their grips. They weren't afraid. They were waiting. Outside, the pirates were no longer organizing. They were fracturing. 3 ships already powered down their weapons. 1 jumped to hyperspace, fleeing without orders. The rest hovered like prey that had just realized the forest was alive. Jace narrowed his eyes. Mara. Yes, Commander. Bring the forward cannons online. Don't fire. Just remind them we could. She nodded. Across the front of the Earthborn warship, soft blue energy ran along the hull, silent, bright, and cold. It illuminated the black like a storm building in reverse. The ship didn't need noise. It was a message written in light, and everyone was reading it. Do you think they'll listen? Mara asked. Jace didn't answer right away. He just stared into the void, watching the pirate fleet come apart piece by piece without a single shot fired. They'll listen, he said quietly, because if they don't... He turned toward the crew, his voice like stone. Then we make sure no one else ever forgets again. The Earthborn warship, call sign Aegis 1, moved like it remembered gravity differently than other ships. It didn't jolt, didn't drift. It slid. Every motion was exact, measured, and completely silent. Outwardly, it remained still, but beneath its surface, a storm of systems ran in perfect harmony. The ship didn't hum. It pulsed. Inside the command bridge, the air was calm. Dim blue lights lined the control panels. No alarms rang. No shouting echoed through the halls. It was as if the crew had done this before, stood at the edge of something massive without flinching. Commander Jace Weller stood in the center, one hand resting gently on the rail beside the command dais. He didn't need to pace or shout to assert control. His crew didn't need orders barked. They moved with purpose, like parts of a machine that had been oiled and forged together over years. One glance from him said more than a dozen transmissions. The ship was a relic by some standards. Earth Command had retired most of the Mark IX siege carriers decades ago. But the Aegis I had been refitted in silence, away from the public eye, and far from bureaucrats who still thought war was only won with votes and speeches. Jace had handpicked every soul aboard. People like Mara Keene, once a tactical analyst with Earth Intel's Red Cell, turned warfighter after losing her family to a pirate raid. Or Daxon Reeve, the engineer who rebuilt the engine core by hand and programmed the ship's AI to run silent and cold. Or Lieutenant Ren Talvek, part Terran, part Martian, fully lethal, who sat at weapons control with fingers hovering millimeters from the trigger, face expressionless, but eyes locked onto the pirate fleet like a hawk watching a field of mice. These weren't just soldiers. They were reminders. Jace tapped the main holodisplay. It flickered to life, showing the full layout of the surrounding region. 38 pirate ships in visual range, 17 smaller vessels drifting further out, maybe watching, maybe waiting. 7 human stealth ships now fully decloaked, holding perfect attack vectors behind the pirates. "We're boxed in, technically," Mara said, her voice soft but clear. "But they don't know we planned it that way." "They think they're hunting," Jace murmured, "and haven't realized they're the ones surrounded." Talvek glanced up. "If even one of them decides to test us, we'll have to make an example." Jace nodded once. Just one. He didn't say which one he hoped it would be. On screen, one of the smaller pirate cruisers suddenly turned. It edged forward, just a hair closer to the Aegis One, and powered up shields. Defensive only. No weapon charge detected. But it was enough. "They're probing," Mara said. "Testing limits." "They'll want to know if we bleed," Talvek added. Jace didn't flinch. "They're welcome to find out." But he knew they wouldn't. Not yet. Because deep down, the pirates knew the truth. They weren't dealing with a typical warship. The Aegis One was part of a generation built after Earth had already lost too much. It was made in silence, under pressure, with the singular purpose of never letting it happen again. Its systems were hardened, its weapons smarter, its armor layered with materials that even Dominion beam lances had failed to pierce. And yet its greatest weapon wasn't on the outside. It was what lived inside it. The crew. Every single one of them had faced loss. Not in theory, not on paper. In the field, in the blood. Some had watched entire colonies fall. Others had lived through black ops missions that never made the news feeds. One had clawed her way out of a wreckage after 20 hours buried in a collapsed outpost, still carrying a wounded child across enemy lines before collapsing herself. Jace didn't need to inspire loyalty. He just needed to aim them. And right now, they were aimed at the largest pirate fleet the Deadline had seen in 10 years. He turned back toward Mara. "What are the status reports on the stealth team?" She brought up a second screen. 7 dots glowed soft green behind the pirate formation. Holding, cloaked, waiting for orders. They've got eyes on multiple targets, command ships, power relays, hangar bays. Do they know what we're looking for? They've been briefed. Priority 1. Identify the central comms node. We disable that, and this whole fleet goes deaf. Then no one's calling for help when it starts. Mara's eyes met his. Or surrendering. A long silence followed. No one liked it, but they all understood it. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was a message. A single word written in fire. Stop. Pirates didn't get second chances. They thrived on fear, chaos, and the hesitation of others. But the Aegis One didn't hesitate. Jace turned to Talvek. "Line up the disruptor array. Aim it at the forward 3 cruisers. Don't fire. I just want them to feel it in their teeth." Talvek grinned faintly. "Yes, Commander." Outside, the space around the warship shimmered. A field of charged energy spread invisibly from its hull, tapping into magnetic distortions that would tickle the nerves of anyone nearby. It wasn't a weapon. Yet. But it made every sensor on the pirate ships spike. To their systems, it felt like standing inside the mouth of a lightning storm. One of the pirate commanders cracked. A frigate spun wildly, engines burning at max, and bolted from the cluster. jumping straight into faster-than-light retreat. It left behind 3 confused escort ships who now looked exposed and afraid. "They're falling apart," Mara said. "Then we don't have to push," Jace replied. "They'll collapse on their own." The bridge remained quiet. Each second that passed added weight to the tension in space. Jace studied the screen for a long moment, then spoke again. "Deploy drones." Mara's hands moved. "Full spectrum?" "Only the visuals." She hesitated. "You sure?" "We need them to see." Within seconds, tiny drones burst from the belly of the Aegis I, each one no larger than a human head. They scattered in formation, surrounding the pirate fleet. They didn't fire, didn't jam signals. They just broadcast one thing, a live feed of the entire encounter, a warning. Every ship, every eye, every screen in the sector would now see this moment. A human warship alone in pirate space. Calm, unshaken, surrounded, and undefeated. Jace stepped forward, voice low but hard. "Play the message." A recorded voice, simple and clear, began to repeat over every open channel. "This is Earth Command. The deadline is no longer lawless. All hostile ships stand down immediately. This is your only warning." Over and over it played, cold, steady, inevitable. And yet, deep in the heart of the Aegis I, Jace knew this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. The message repeated across every pirate ship, filling cockpits, command bridges, and crew quarters like a low, steady heartbeat that wouldn't stop. "This is Earth Command. The deadline is no longer lawless. All hostile ships stand down immediately. This is your only warning." Again and again. Calm, unchanging, like the ship it came from. On the bridge of the pirate dreadnought Vulture's Maw, Captain Dren Voss snarled at the blinking console. His crew shifted uncomfortably around him. Veteran killers, most of them. People who'd survived battles against Terran scouts, Dominion patrols, and worse. But none of them wanted to move. None of them even breathed too loudly. They had grown up on stories about human warships, ships that didn't blink, crews that didn't speak unless it was to say goodbye, weapons that didn't fire unless someone needed to be erased. And now one was here. Alone, supposedly. But no one really believed that. "Get me a reading on their weapons grid," Voss barked. His sensor officer hesitated. "Sir, every time we try to scan, the signal folds, like it's bouncing back at us." "Then brute force it." "We already did." Silence again. The dreadnought sat at the edge of the pirate formation, still shielded, its weapons fully charged. It was the most powerful vessel the pirates had. 5 decks tall, 4 hangar bays, a plasma lance that could split a moon if it held still too long. And yet, it hadn't moved an inch. Because Voss had watched what happened to the Blood Howl. Gone in a blink. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Just gone. Across the scattered fleet, more ships were starting to shift. Tiny movements. Course adjustments. Panic masquerading as formation realignment. The pirate captains were talking over back channels, but no one wanted to say what they were all thinking. They weren't in control anymore. On the Aegis I, Jace Weller watched the feed like a chess master, surveying a board, mid-collapse. He didn't gloat, didn't smirk. He simply watched the data stream. The Vulture's Maw hadn't fled. That meant Voss hadn't broken yet. That made him the centerpiece, the one the others would follow or run from. Mara read his mind. If we want to make an example, it has to be him. Jace nodded. But not yet. If he panics, he'll run hot. Might take 2 or 3 ships with him. She frowned. So what do? We tighten the leash. He keyed the comms. Talvek. Status on drone net. All holding formation. Broadcasting clearly. Collapse the field by 0.8 astronomical units. Cut their exits by half. Quietly. Copy that. Outside, the drones, still cloaked to most visual ranges, shifted formation. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. But suddenly the pirate fleet had fewer places to run. Back aboard the Vulture's maw, Voss noticed. Where are our vectors? He demanded. The navigation officer's voice cracked. They've boxed us in, sir. Voss's lip curled. How? With one ship? The nav officer looked up, eyes wide. We think there are others. We just can't see them. That silence returned, heavy, dense. He turned toward his lieutenant. Deploy the skiffs. Sir? Recon pattern. Manual. I want visuals. I want to know what's out there. But if they're cloaked. They're not gods, Voss snapped. They're humans. They bleed like the rest of us. He didn't believe it anymore. Not fully. But he needed someone to say it out loud. The skiffs launched. Fast, 2-seater scout ships built for speed, not durability. They darted from the hangar like sparks from a fire, each one slicing toward the outer edges of the drone field, trying to trace the line that was closing in around them. On the Aegis 1, Talvek tracked them calmly. Visual contact with recon units. 15 skiffs. Threat? Jace asked. Minimal, unless they get too close to the array. Mara leaned in. What if they do? Jace's gaze never left the screen. Then we show them it's real. In the black of space, 2 skiffs zipped dangerously close to one of the cloaked drones. The drone didn't move, didn't react, just watched. One of the skiff pilots opened a direct communication. We've got something, he said, breath shaky. It's not showing on sensors, but the stars are bending around it. That was the last thing he said. The drone released a silent burst of electromagnetic interference. The skiff's systems went dead instantly. Power, propulsion, comms. The ship tumbled once, then twice, and disappeared into the dark, spinning helplessly. A second later, the second skiff's canopy burst open. No explosion, just a sharp ripple of force. And its crew were pulled into the vacuum. Back on the Vulture's maw, the data came in like a punch. 2 skiffs down, no return signal. Voss stared at the blinking red lights on his display. He'd sent them out like hunters. They hadn't even made it back to scream. Jace Weller stood silently on his bridge, the echo of the skiff's fall rippling through his team. No celebration, no cruelty, just recognition. A lesson delivered. The deadline had rules now, and breaking them had a cost. We've confirmed full blackout on Quadrant 3, Talvek said. Drone field holding. No response from the Vulture. Jace exhaled through his nose. They'll move now, either in or out. And if they move in? Mara asked. Then we speak for the first time. Mara raised an eyebrow. And say what? Jace glanced down at the repeating message still running on every pirate channel. Still looping. Still steady. He keyed into the command channel. Cut the feed. The message stopped. Every pirate on every ship suddenly found themselves in silence. It was almost worse than the threat. The loop had been a heartbeat, and now it was gone. Then a new voice came through. Jace's voice. Vulture's Maw. This is Commander Weller of the Earthborn ship Aegis 1. You've got 30 seconds to decide. Power down your fleet and stand down, or make history for the wrong reasons. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. But the tone hit like steel. On the Vulture's Maw, Voss stared at the speaker, as if trying to see through it. One voice. One man. He turned to his crew. None of them met his eyes. 30 seconds. Outside, the stars held their breath. The 30 seconds stretched like an eternity. On board the Vulture's Maw, Captain Voss stood frozen. Around him, his crew worked in sharp, twitchy movements, checking weapons, rerouting shield power, pulling up external scans that returned nothing but static and ghost echoes. They were trying to make sense of the quiet, trying to see the threat. But the threat wasn't visible. It didn't need to be. One man, one voice, one warship. That was all it took. Voss knew bluffs. He'd made a career out of them, sent false pings to enemy scanners, painted dead moons to look like battle stations, turned a handful of fighters into a convincing blockade. But this wasn't a bluff. This was certainty wrapped in silence. The comms were dead quiet now. No more loops, no more warnings. Just a countdown that wasn't even spoken, but felt in every pulse of the ship's failing confidence. Sir, his weapons officer said, her voice thin and dry, our long-range scans are showing distortions, not weapon signatures, just space moving. Cloaked ships. She nodded slowly. Or worse, something new. Voss clenched his jaw. He had 29 ships still powered, still armed, enough to level a station, enough to send a message of his own. But messages only mattered if someone heard them. And right now, there was no guarantee anyone would be left alive to listen. Still, something in him burned. A pride. Stupid maybe, but real. He had ruled the deadline for 7 cycles, survived Dominion hunts, Terran blackouts, even the Borkov Rift collapse. And now one Terran voice wanted him to back down. He stepped forward. Open a line. To all ships. The signal blinked green. This is Captain Voss, he said, loud and clear. We're not cowards, not thieves. We took this space because no one else could hold it. And now they send one ship with one message and expect us to fall like children? If any of you remember what it means to be free, then hold your position. Hold your fire, and stand with me. He paused, waiting for cheers. None came. But no one fled either. It was the closest thing to courage he could ask for. Aboard the Aegis 1, Jace Weller heard the transmission. He didn't comment. He didn't mock it. He just listened. Response? Mara asked softly. Jace shook his head. None needed. Talvek, he said after a moment, disable the Vulture's Maw's left shield grid. Talvek blinked. Without firing? Jace nodded once. He looked past the team to the children, then turned and walked toward the command bridge. His voice came steady over the ship-wide channel. We have our people. Now we end this. On the Vulture's maw, Captain Voss stared at the screen. He saw it. The extraction. The pod. The full view being broadcast by the Terran drones to every ship in the pirate fleet. There was no longer a doubt. The Terrans hadn't come here to posture. They had come to take something back. And now that they had it, they weren't leaving quietly. One of his crew turned to him. Sir, what now? Voss didn't answer, because it was already too late to choose. The Aegis I moved. It didn't speed up. It didn't launch missiles. It simply glided forward, steady as fate. From its flanks, the 7 stealth ships uncloaked in full view, drifting into a wall of precision and symmetry. And behind them, dozens more drones blinked into visibility, each one a sensor, a camera, a signal flare for all of known space. The pirates were being watched now, not just by Terrans, but by everyone. What came next would be a message to the galaxy. Jace stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. Target the Vulture's maw, he said. Talvek responded instantly. Plasma lances locked. Secondary targets, weapon platforms, carrier bays, disable only. Confirmed. Mara looked up. You're sure you want it public? Jace nodded. They wanted to rule the deadline. Let them rule the memory of what happens next. The first plasma lance fired, not from the main cannon, from the dorsal arc, clean, surgical, and beautiful in its precision. It didn't explode. It erased. The entire left wing of the Vulture's maw, engines, weapon banks, auxiliary power, vanished in a soft blue flash. No fire, no scream, just gone. Then the second volley hit. 3 pirate ships lost shields. 5 more lost weapons. 1 detonated from the inside, its reactor overloading from electromagnetic feedback. Panic turned to chaos. Ships began jumping. Anywhere, any direction. It didn't matter. Fleeing wasn't brave. It was instinct. And in less than 2 minutes, the mighty pirate fleet of the Deadline had turned into a cloud of running cowards and burning metal. Not a single Terran life lost. Not a single word wasted. The battle was over before it began. And when the Aegis I turned away from the drifting wreckage, it did so without a cheer, without a victory speech, without a single light blinking on its hull. Because it hadn't come for revenge. It had come to remind the galaxy, humans never forget. In the med bay, the young girl reached out from under the blanket and tugged at Jace's sleeve. He turned. Are we going home now? She asked. Jace crouched down, meeting her eyes. Not yet, he said quietly. First, we make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. The Aegis I turned from the Deadline, sliding back into the dark. Behind it, the stars flickered over the broken bones of pirate rule. Ahead, uncharted space, unknown threats, unfinished wars. But the galaxy had learned something today. Something it had long forgotten. Humanity doesn't always come with armies. Sometimes it only needs one ship, and that's more than enough.